The worldview from the left in Cortez is the us versus them. It's classism. The straights versus the gays. It's the whites versus the blacks. It's the Me Too versus all the white males. Taste the rainbow, you filthy son of a bitch! Question of the day, does anybody out there really believe that companies like Amazon or Walmart get away with paying no taxes? Let me know. And which economic fallacy or myth do you most often run into in everyday conversation? Let me know. So let me warn you, this next segment is going to be a little nerdy. And by little, I mean it'll make Mayor Pete Buttigieg look like the Fresh Prince. So I just want to know that you understand this is going to be dry. I think it's an important segment because one of the most pervasive, oft-repeated myths that we hear in the current class warfare platform from the DNC is that mega corporations like Amazon, they pay nothing in taxes. Here you go.
It's wrong that corporations like Walmart and Amazon can get paid. They can get paid by the government, essentially.
Essentially. That's the umbrella term.
For paying people less than the minimum wage.
A company like Amazon makes $10 billion in profits, can walk away paying nothing in taxes.
We should not have a regressive tax system in which large, profitable corporations like Amazon pay nothing in federal income taxes.
Uh-oh, sounds like Uncle Bernie drank a bucket of salt water again. The idea that corporations, there's that word, corporations, companies, evil, Citizens United, that they don't pay anything in tax, it's laughably untrue. And it's ironic to me that Democrats who believe themselves to have the monopoly on the ground of nuance can only make this claim through deliberately misleading arithmetic. We commonly refer to that as Bernie math, by the way. 2 + 2 is your fair share, you prick! Let me give you some context, okay? Let's use Amazon as a jumping off point. A couple of things. In both 2017 and 2018, separately, Amazon paid about $1 billion in taxes, okay? Wow. That includes payroll taxes, income taxes, local, some might say, couple billion dollars. Local taxes, none of this is to mention all of the individual income taxes paid by the hundreds of thousands of employees through the jobs created by Amazon. Good thing, we would think, right? So where does the claim come from? It's like the wage. It comes from one number, that Amazon specifically paid nothing in federal corporate income tax. Now, that's true, just like it's true for General Motors, but we'll get back to that in a second. This one is really easy to figure out as to why Amazon paid nothing exclusively in federal corporate taxes. One, they get deductions for, they spend a lot on research and development, okay? Over $22 billion in 2017 alone. Should Amazon be taxed on that? Do you believe that it's better for a company to not invest in innovation? Would it be better if Amazon had not invested in the 2-day shipping, which is soon to become 1-day shipping, and the new vans pioneering hassle-free returns, forcing the entire shipping industry to become more efficient and competitive? Would that be a good thing? Again, we started with $10 billion in profits, $22 billion in innovation and research. Another reason they get deductions for what's called property, plants, and equipment. Cumulatively, they spent over $60 billion by the end of 2018. Would you rather see those billions of dollars, which, by the way, benefit local real estate and jobs markets, handed to the federal government instead? For context, here's something, this is why this bothers me quite a bit. It's really easy with this us versus them. It's this classism, it's identitarianism, just on another level because it deals with income. All businesses, in context, use these deductions. Guess how I know? Okay, when I built a new studio, I obviously deducted that as profits from the company. But guess what? The new landlord makes money off the lease. When I pay someone for a new camera needed for the show, I also write that off as an expense. When I pay someone to come in and install a backup generator, yeah, that's a tax deduction. That's a bad thing, the voluntary transaction of goods and services. This is exactly why Cortez and the far left saw Amazon leaving New York City as a good thing, while an overwhelming number of New Yorkers did not. This really comes, whether you believe it or not, comes down to whether you understand the numbers. Whether you think it's right or not comes down to, what do you think benefits the working class more? 25,000 jobs with an average 6-figure salary in New York? Or all of that money going to Washington, D.C. to divvy up at their discretion? That's a decision you have to make. I can't make it for you. By the way, hit the notification bell if you're subscribed, because apparently subscriptions don't mean anything on YouTube. The only way to support this show is louderwithcreditor.com/mugclub, and subscribe on iTunes. Another thing that Amazon does, they set deductions because they increased pay for employees through stock compensation, and a big one, they can carry forward some of the losses from the years prior when they were using and losing billions of dollars instead of making anything. This is something people don't understand. Again, you're investing $22 billion here, $60 billion there. You can carry forward some of those losses when you finally become profitable. All businesses do this, and they should. From the local restaurant owner to the car dealership, I can tell you, I've had years after I've paid workers, I would literally have to dip into savings just to invest in inventory or website development for the next year. And you know what? I'm lucky. Because many businesses actually have to borrow money to invest in next quarter's earnings, let alone the next year. Often inventory, that's a huge borrow. Sometimes you have to borrow to pay taxes. My father-in-law had to do that. Now, how did I avoid it? By paying myself zero for years. So we were pretty lucky that I didn't put any debt in the company. Now, if businesses couldn't do that, if they couldn't carry forward any losses, no one would invest, no one would take the risk to create a business. Consider this, 80% of restaurants, since we remove it from the big corporations, let's just go to restaurants. They do the same thing. They fail within the first 5 years, 80% of restaurants. Knowing that, a business owner, a restaurateur, who, Bernie, by the way, will tip his wait staff exactly 18%. He has an app. I'm not paying a penny more! And go and get my stogies! So knowing that 80% fail, a business is going to have the confidence that they won't be punished for employing dozens, servers, chefs, busboys, paying for least food purchases. All of this could cost them and likely will cost them far more than the restaurant makes for the first 2 or 3 years. This business owner takes the risk in the hopes that by year 4 or 5, he can make a hefty profit. Why would he take that risk if at the end of the rainbow is Bernie with a pot of you? Taste the rainbow, you filthy son of a bitch! I don't understand it. All of this adds up. When we use Amazon, they've invested more than $160 billion in the U.S. alone since 2011. Wow. Statistically significant, I would say a good thing. And the bait and switch here that the Democrats do, you heard what she said? We can because this is what Nina Pinta Santa Maria Congresswoman sounds like. The Democrats often conflate tax deductions or incentives with tax dollars. They do this a lot, like we're paying for the oil industry, we're paying Amazon. No direct taxpayer dollars were given to Amazon, period. Amazon instead, they created hundreds of thousands of jobs and employed tax-paying citizens. Which brings me back to an earlier point. There's another massive company that paid nothing in federal taxes last year, okay? Can you remember what it is? Pause. Go through the rewind machine. General Motors is the answer, everybody. What is General Motors? Why don't we hear them bitch about that? Could it be that the major difference here is that General Motors was actually part of an over $80 billion federal auto bailout? This is what's important. I've talked about this before. I'm not the party of big business or small business. I'm the party of good business. If you're running it honestly and you're not taking my money to run your business, if there's no ill-gotten gain, what the hell do I care if you're a billionaire, a millionaire, or 100,000-aire? We shouldn't care. Just like we shouldn't care if someone who runs the business happens to be black, white, Asian. It shouldn't matter to us as long as they're playing by the rules. But when it comes to General Motors, it's not good business. In other words, you, the taxpayer, unlike Amazon, who does not work for GM, likely does not drive a crappy GM car. You probably don't even live in the same state as a GM plant. You were directly paying for their union screw-ups, and they still can't get their balance sheets right. So again, this all comes down to your worldview. We can list the facts. And my question to you would be this. If you think they need to be paying more in taxes, if the $2 billion isn't enough, they need to be paying more in corporate tax. What should the tax system look like? What system would be better than the one that we have now that encourages people to employ hundreds of thousands of people? The worldview from the left in Cortez is the us versus them. It's classism. It's the wealthy versus the poor. They do the same thing. It's the straights versus the gays. It's the whites versus the blacks. It's the Me Too versus all the white males. It's the cis versus LGBTQ, AAIP, and whatever Slate is writing about that day. And they say we're trying to divide and conquer. Is your worldview us versus them and getting what you want, which is your fair share? The fair share is what you've earned, period. Or do you believe in sound business? Do you believe in the reward of risk? Do you believe that individuals have the right to spend their own money? That's really what this comes down to. The belief that Washington, D.C. should take this money, despite already getting billions of dollars, and they know how to better spend it than you. My economic worldview is, let's call it reductive. Let's call it simplistic. And I'd like to know your thoughts on this. I tend to believe that individuals, if given the freedom and the opportunity to do so, they do things relatively well. Not all, but most. I tend to believe that government, if centralized and given enough power, tends to do things poorly. Hey there, if you like this video, this is the part where I would usually tell you to subscribe, but I can't do it anymore. I'm going to tell you to subscribe, and then YouTube is going to decide that we can't reach you even though you subscribe to this channel, and then I'll say hit the notification bell, and then the notification bell won't even be there anymore. I don't know what to say. More than likely you'll find my face in a milk carton. But do what you can to stop it. It probably won't do much.